Something that I chronically overthink when jumping and dunking is my arms. With dunking and your findings, have you found anything that is worth looking at?
Yeah, I was just dealing with that like this week when that's for my like ball no ball. I call it the ball no ball comparison. So like jumping with the ball versus jumping without the ball, and dribble dunks versus just jumps. And one of the things is like in the literature, this this is kind of like getting to the hot take zone. Minute 45. Why I hate stationary jumps. Why I hate counter movement jumps. But there's a lot of research on counter movement jumps, whether you have arm swing or not. And it's like a very, very popular topic, right? And it has direct applications when you're testing for quote unquote readiness or, power, right? And people do comparisons. They're like, oh, what is the contribution of the arms to performance? And my next question is like, what do you mean by contribution? Are you talking about the easiest way is say jump with arms, jump without arms? What's the difference in jump height? You can argue, that 15-20% difference is the contribution. But is it really due to the arms? Or is it because of how the arms modify the legs?
Just quickly as well, does this overlap a lot with the Lance Brooks stuff about how people were thinking about the arms as being this propulsive element, and then when we took them away, we're like, oh, it's really just this form of dynamic stabilization? Because coaches would always get up me about my arms swinging across my body, and they're like, you're trying to go fucking forwards, swing them forwards, cunt. But obviously, my body was just trying to stop me falling over because I'm a shit sprinter. And is it sort of the same? It's like, it's just this thing, it's just an artifact of.
Yeah, no, it's similar because, okay, so this is why momentum is the lens you should be looking at, because it's not just about how fast something is moving. Momentum includes both a body part's mass and velocity, if we're talking about linear momentum. For angular, it's also similar. But the faster something can move, it's because it's lighter, okay? It doesn't mean it's contributing more to the motion of the whole body, and it doesn't mean it necessarily have like the most amount of momentum. The reasons your arms can afford to swing quite fast, especially in the case of running, is because they have lower mass. And similarly, the reason you can have super, super high rotational velocity in throwing a baseball pitch, especially about like the internal IRER direction and the pronation, supination direction, is because the amount of resistance against rotation is the least in that direction. So it's like some body parts can only move so fast.
Whereas a fucking thigh, like all that meat,
you can't move it that fast, right? They have too much momentum to really be swinging around. That's why the thighs, guess what? They're going forward and backward. That is the goal. But for the arms, it's fast, and especially from an angular momentum rotation perspective, yes, it's in sprinting, it's doing more of the rotation side than linear propulsion. But it doesn't mean it does not modify how your lower limb is working. So there's always like the body segment's direct contribution to the movement of the body itself by itself versus how it modifies the rest of the body moves. And that's really what's happening in jumping. Like people have quantified the literal amount of momentum generated by the arms, and then they will plot it and they say, here's the curves for the trunk, the thigh, the leg, and here's the arms, and you can barely see it. It's like so close to zero because it's so light. When you account for a segment's mass as well as its speed, when you multiply them in terms of momentum computations, it's really not that much. So people sort of pivoted away from just looking at the arms and how it modifies the rest of the body. Okay. So it's really about how your arms.
Because then yes. I was trying to figure out the best path for me to dunking, because I have no handles. And I either have to learn to self-lob or something like that, or run in with the ball. I was told that if I was going to run in with the ball, I'd essentially need to be like this 11-foot jumper. That is not my experience. My experience, I feel like I can just swing that fucking ball as I'm running in, and it's just like this big one arm that I've got. What are your thoughts on that? Or would you need to see it in the lab? You're like, fuck, I don't know.
There's a lot of discussions with like, okay. So what I found, everybody when they do a dribble dunk, so when they have the ball in the run up, and then they go up, 18 out of 21 people jump lower. So it's like majority of people jump lower. it's so intuitive. I don't even want to put it as a finding, but because there are so little things out there, it's a finding. It's a finding in a study. It's yeah, it is what it is. So if you want to dunk by yourself, I think I used to be a lob hater, but it's whether it's easier for you to get better at jumping higher versus it's easier for you to learn the lob. If you're worried about your knees and hips,
I think I'm just a fucking uncoordinated monkey, and I just need to work on jumping 12 feet. I think I could fucking probably dunk on like much. Yeah, I'll never figure out how to lob. I'm useless, man. Like,
no,
whereas
that
like
was
the
me.
one thing I have is,
And then, but like, for Jacob, even just practice lobbing by just, especially if you're worried about load management, just practice lobbing. That's like the easiest way. You don't have to worry about your hips and knees going out, and inadvertently, you actually end up practicing a lot of lobs when you throw enough shit ones, and then and then you can judge it, right? I know too well. When I was back in my undergrad, I was just trying to do off the dribble dunks because I was just so sick of throwing lobs. It's the same as when I front squat. My traps hurt when I back squat. Eventually, they don't hurt. Eventually, you start throwing more decent lobs. It does. Pump the ball up, though. If you want to do lobs, pump the ball. If you want to do a dribble dunk, yes. If you want to go off the dribble, have a softer ball. It's easier to actually get it down without dribbling. But I think off the lob, easier, obviously, perfectly. You have the hoop and the ball just in front or above it, or even as it's going in. That's like the most ideal scenario. So you bounce as if you're trying to do like a horse shot, and then you just have a bounce right in after ground contact. That would be perfect, and you just give it a nice little tap, and you're a dunker.
If you like our content about training, then you'll love our programming too. Head to the notes below to grab a free week of general physical preparation. You get unlimited access to me and fresh programming every single week for less than $1